Also tonight, protesters disrupt today's budget meeting at City Hall. We'll have more on the calls for council to add 1,000 new shelter beds this year. That's just ahead.
CTV's Heather Wright joins us now. She's live at City Hall, where Heather, money talk caused some chaos in council.
It sure did this morning, Ken. There were a number of protesters in council chamber. They were demanding more action from city council. Specifically, they are calling for more shelter beds.
For 2 hours, people couldn't sleep.
Just an hour into city council's budget meeting, the shouting began.
Still won't have a bed a year from now.
1 minute.
About 75 activists with the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty packed into council chamber, demanding more shelter beds be added to the city's budget. Several people were escorted out by police to applause from fellow protesters.
And since you like the fairy tale, Mr. Tory.
The fairy tale he's referring to is Goldilocks. Mayor John Tory has called the city's $11 billion budget a Goldilocks budget, saying it's just right in the balance it strikes between spending and fiscal restraint. These protesters disagree, and they want more money for shelter beds.
We're in a situation where the city is proposing to provide in their budget only some 361 beds. There needs to be 1,500 beds to take the pressure off of the system. Hundreds of people are crowding into a substandard overflow system that is not meeting basic needs.
The 2018 budget does include the addition of about 1,000 new shelter beds, but rolled out over 3 years. The mayor has asked staff to add the beds as soon as possible.
We're looking at well over 1,000 new beds that we're looking at getting in. Now, that's going to take a bit of time to implement. Staff have told us they're going to be working at that 1,000, but it's going to take a bit of time.
Eventually, police and security cleared the entire council chamber, with budget talks resuming a short while later. Council spent the majority of the afternoon debating the city's property tax rate. And despite motions introduced by several councillors to both raise and lower the property tax rate beyond the rate of inflation, none of those motions carried. The city's property tax rate increase will be 2.1%. And that hike amounts to about $81 for the average homeowner. Meanwhile, council is on a dinner break. They will be back in chamber starting at 6:30. Last year, they were able to debate and pass the budget in a day. They wrapped up around midnight last year. It's unclear whether they're going to be able to do that again this year. If not, they will be back at it again tomorrow. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Heather Wright. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Heather.
Hey, John Tory, 1,000 beds or you'll be sorry. Hey, John Tory, 1,000 beds or you'll be sorry. Hey.
Protesters crashed the first day of budget debate for Toronto City Councillors today, demanding enough funding to support at least 1,000 new shelter beds this year. The proposed budget spreads that funding out over 3 years. The Ontario Coalition Against Poverty says without those beds, people will be forced to live long-term in respite centres, and it's using undercover video today to highlight what it's like inside those shelters. Greg Ross is live at City Hall for us tonight. And Greg, you showed that video to people who work and stay at those shelters.
That's right, Dwight, and nobody is denying the accuracy of these videos. Instead, what they did was they clarified why the conditions are the way they are in those videos. And they say it's because these are emergency respites, and they're designed to be a short-term solution during the bitter cold months.
What we saw in the Betterness Living Centre was horrific.
Protesters from the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty stormed City Hall to protest conditions at Toronto homeless shelters, which they say aren't up to city standards. They shot this hidden camera footage inside two of the city's emergency respites, including the Better Living Centre on the exhibition grounds. They say the conditions are unlivable.
A mass of people, 125 to 150, all stacked in together in one big room. Some of the lights on. And they're having to live like this for 24 hours a day. Nowhere to go, nothing to do.
Mark Ashton from the Fred Victor Society, which runs the respite at the Better Living Centre, says this video is accurate.
I think the video shows it what it is. It's a large space with cots.
Ashton says their space was never intended to be a long-term solution. They were set up as an option for people in need during cold months.
The Better Living Centre is an emergency response to a very urgent situation we have. It is designed to provide safe accommodation for the evening, for a week, for a few weeks.
The video also shows inside the All Saints respite on Dundas and Sherbourne. It claims temperatures inside dropped to 14 degrees one night. But Shay Campbell, who stays there regularly, doesn't agree.
The conditions are fine. The place is kept clean all the time. Everybody has to leave at 2:30 for cleaning. It's the people that are there.
Campbell says the biggest problem at All Saints is that many of the people that go there have issues with drug addiction.
It's the people that are running in and out all night long, arguing, fighting over stupidity.
It's not the Ritz, but people aren't asking for the Ritz.
Greg Rogers runs the All Saints respite. He says for the most part, the people they help are happy, but he admits this has been an extremely busy winter.
We all experienced more people on the streets this winter than we thought. We also have had a very severely cold winter, and people need to come inside or their health is at risk.
At both places, they also pointed out that they never close their doors to anybody. All are welcome, which is particularly important during those bitter cold nights. They also both pointed out that they provide 3 meals a day plus snacks. They have staff on site 24 hours a day. The homeless can bring their pets if they need to. They also have secure locations where they could lock up their belongings. They say that these are set up as a temporary solution, but they both agreed at both sites that the city does need more beds, but they also believe the long-term solution is to find housing for people in need. Dwight?
Thank you, Greg.
You're watching Global Toronto. This is Global News at 5:30.
We are trying to make up for decades of relative inaction.
Hundreds of millions of dollars are slated for spending on everything from the public library to policing. The shelter system is one of the bigger ticket items, slated for $142 million in funding. For months now, anti-poverty activists have been calling on the city to add 1,000 permanent beds and clean up conditions in the temporary respite centers seen in this hidden camera video provided by OCAP. Lynn Skye is homeless, dealing with health issues. She says the shelter is the last place she wants to be.
And I will not be well enough to go anyplace else. It is not safe. And if you have no immune, you are going to become ill there.
So what are you going to do?
That's a very good question.
With those extra beds not on the agenda, protesters disrupted today's meeting to get their message out loudly.
Add more beds or you'll be sorry.
At least 2 of them dragged out by police, the commotion causing council to recess briefly.
Hey, not sorry. Add some beds or you'll be sorry.
Council meeting got off to a rough start this morning. Members of the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty disrupted the meeting with a protest. The group wants the city to introduce more shelter beds. And they say while the budget adds 361 beds, 1,500 new beds are necessary to guarantee a bed for everyone in need.
Mr. Tory, we all know you have a comfortable bed to sleep in, but the budget that you're championing is going to make sure that hundreds of homeless who don't have a bed today still won't have a bed a year from now. The conditions in the respite centers are nightmarish, Mr. Tory. You need to add at least 1,000 beds this year.